Poland's President Karol Nawrocki has said that Donald Trump is the only world leader capable of stopping Russian President Vladimir Putin from threatening Europe and of bringing an end to the war in Ukraine. The comments were made during an interview with BBC Radio 4's Today program as President Nawrocki visited the United Kingdom for meetings with Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and other officials. His remarks come at a time of continued concern across Central and Eastern Europe over Russia's actions and their implications for regional and collective security. In the interview, President Nawrocki stated that Vladimir Putin could not be trusted. At the same time, he said Europe must do everything possible to support President Trump in his efforts to end the conflict in Ukraine. He described Donald Trump as the only person who could, in his words, solve this problem, referring both to stopping Russia's threats toward Europe and to ending the war. President Nawrocki has been widely known as a strong supporter of Donald Trump, a position he held even before arriving in Britain for his current diplomatic engagements. The Polish president placed his comments within the broader context of security challenges facing Poland and its neighbors. He said Russia, under President Putin, was threatening not only Poland, but also countries across Central and Eastern Europe. According to President Nawrocki, these threats require firm international leadership and strong cooperation among allies. He emphasized that Europe's response should focus on unity and support for efforts aimed at ending the war in Ukraine. President Nawrocki also referred to specific incidents that he said illustrate the seriousness of the situation. He highlighted a mass incursion by Russian drones last September when more than 20 uncrewed aircraft crossed into Poland from Belarus and Ukraine. He described this as an extraordinary situation, noting that no NATO member state had previously experienced a drone attack on that scale. According to him, the incident showed Russia testing both Poland's defenses and NATO's solidarity. These opening remarks from the Polish president set out his view of the current security environment in Europe, his assessment of Russia's actions, and his belief in the role of the United States. As we continue, we will look more closely at the incidents he cited, Poland's response to what he described as hybrid warfare, and the role of NATO allies. In continuing his remarks, President Karol Nawrocki expanded on the security challenges Poland has faced in recent years, describing what he characterized as a prolonged period of pressure from Russia. He said Poland had been living in a state of what he called hybrid war with Russia since 2021. According to President Nawrocki, this situation has involved repeated encounters with drones as well as campaigns of disinformation, which he said were designed to test Poland's resilience and readiness. He stated that these actions form part of what he described as Russian gray zone activity, adding that such developments demonstrated that Europe was living in dangerous times. The Polish president directly linked these experiences to the need for strong international cooperation. In this context, he expressed gratitude toward the United Kingdom for its support. President Nawrocki thanked Britain for deploying Royal Air Force Typhoon jets to assist in defending Poland's borders. He said this contribution played an important role in strengthening security and underlined the importance of NATO's collective defense commitments. His comments highlighted Poland's reliance on Allied support in responding to what he described as ongoing and complex threats. During the interview, President Nawrocki was also questioned about his personal relationship with Donald Trump. This line of questioning included reference to statements made by the U.S. President about taking control of Greenland by any means, comments that have caused concern in parts of Europe and raised questions about the future cohesion of the NATO alliance, which has existed for 77 years. President Nawrocki responded by reaffirming his view that the United States remained the key guarantor of security in Europe, despite recent statements by some U.S. officials suggesting otherwise. He said that the actions taken by President Trump on behalf of Europe deserve support and respect. At the same time, President Nawrocki expressed concern about what he described as Europe detaching itself from the United States. He stated that such a development would be harmful both to the economic security and the military security of the European Union. These comments reflected his emphasis on the continued importance of transatlantic cooperation. As the discussion moved forward, attention turned to unresolved diplomatic sensitivities and broader European priorities, themes that President Nawrocki addressed in further detail. As the interview progressed, President Karol Nawrocki addressed the sensitive issue of Greenland, which had emerged as a point of concern following remarks by the United States President. He described the matter as an awkward question, but made clear his view that it should be handled through established diplomatic channels. According to President Nawrocki, any discussion regarding Greenland should remain strictly between the Danish Prime Minister and President Donald Trump. He said he was confident that the issue would ultimately be resolved within the framework of NATO and through direct dialogue between Denmark and the United States. His remarks were presented as a call for calm engagement rather than public confrontation over the matter. President Nawrocki then used the interview to turn his attention toward the broader direction of European leadership. He offered criticism of European leaders, saying they were, in his words, focused on matters he regarded as less important. He specifically referred to ideological issues including the Green Deal, climate policy, and immigration, which he said had taken priority over long-term resilience and security. According to him, Europe had not sufficiently strengthened its defensive capabilities over the years. These comments were framed within his broader argument that security concerns should be placed at the center of European policymaking. In contrast, President Nawrocki highlighted Poland's own approach to defense and security. He stated that Poland was now allocating close to 5% of its gross domestic product to defense spending. He presented this figure as evidence of Poland's commitment to strengthening its military readiness in response to the security challenges it faces. His remarks underscored Poland's view of itself as a frontline state within NATO, particularly in relation to threats emanating from Russia. The Polish president also spoke about relations with the United Kingdom, offering notably positive comments. He described ties between Poland and the UK as extremely important and pointed out that around 1 million Polish citizens currently live in Britain. This, he said, added further significance to the bilateral relationship. President Nawrocki expressed deep appreciation for British soldiers stationed in Poland, noting their role in taking responsibility for NATO's eastern flank. He concluded this part of the discussion by expressing hope for deeper engagement on the international stage. Specifically, he said he hoped that, with Poland's economy growing rapidly, Britain, as host of the next G20 summit, would invite Poland to take part. With these remarks, the interview moved toward its closing themes. In the closing portion of the interview, President Karol Nawrocki brought together the key themes he had outlined, returning to the central issue of European security and international cooperation. He reiterated his position that Europe was facing a serious and evolving threat environment, one that required unity among allies and clear leadership. His remarks consistently returned to the belief that the United States remained essential to Europe's defense and that cooperation within NATO continued to be the foundation of security on the continent. President Nawrocki restated his view that the role played by the United States under the leadership of President Donald Trump was central to addressing the challenges posed by Russia. He maintained that supporting American efforts was in Europe's interest, particularly in the context of the ongoing war in Ukraine and wider regional instability. Throughout his comments, he emphasized that weakening transatlantic ties would undermine both economic and military security across the European Union. The Polish president also underscored the importance of dialogue in established institutions and resolving disputes. His confidence that issues such as Greenland could be addressed through NATO and diplomatic engagement reflected his broader commitment to alliance-based solutions. He presented this approach as preferable to public disagreements that could strain long-standing partnerships. As the interview concluded, President Nawrocki again highlighted Poland's close relationship with the United Kingdom. He spoke warmly of the presence of British troops in Poland and their contribution to NATO's eastern defenses, describing their role as a tangible sign of Allied solidarity. He also noted the strong people-to-people links between the two countries, reinforced by the large Polish community living in Britain. Finally, President Nawrocki expressed optimism about Poland's growing role on the global stage, pointing to its expanding economy and increased defense investment. His hope that Poland would be invited to participate in the next G20 summit hosted by Britain reflected his desire for greater international engagement. These remarks brought the interview to a close, summarizing Poland's position on security, alliances,